So basically the reason I come down here every so often is I try to spread information about psychopathy. And I think it has an overarching impact on why people are down here camping out and why the financial industry and the government really doesn't care about the people anymore. These people, they're about 1 to 5% of the population, and they have no concept of empathy, remorse, guilt, conscience. They're not biologically capable of it. And they've shown this in MRI studies, and there's been a lot of actual hard science that proves the point that they're totally different than normal humans. There's also been a lot of research done by this one guy, Andrew Lobachevsky in Poland, who shows how they are able to infect and co-opt large groups of people, governments, and religious institutions. That's why I brought this book, because he talks all about it, and he shows scientifically how it happens each step of the way. And I feel that these people in the financial industries especially, they're able to rape and pillage resources from the people without having any concept of how it affects others, because they can't conceptualize that. It's just not within their range of capabilities. And when we see institutions like the Catholic Church and how they handle pedophilia, for example, it's another instance of that type of conscienceless, remorseless being infecting and taking over a large group and effectively, distorting what the original purpose of the institution was supposed to be. And these people, they've probably been with us since humanity evolved. We've never really had any scientific understanding of them or conceptualization of them. And it's probably where our ideas of vampires come from. There's a word for vampire in every single language on Earth, and people have a very strong archetypal identification with it. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been aware that these people exist. I mean, most people in their lives have probably met one or two, the people that just seem manipulative, cunning, ruthless, and just able to control the people around them. And sometimes, they put up this image like they're a really good leader or that they're very confident. It's because they have no ability to even conceive of how their plans can go wrong or how they can impact other people. So my big push is to come down and to talk about it and to share information, because the only way that we're ever going to be able to beat them is when enough people in our society know that they exist and can spot the behaviors before they're able to be controlled by them. They have a very cunning sort of paralogic or a pseudo-logic where they take an ideal and twist it and manipulate it using words and imagery so that they can make themselves seem, righteous or correct. And when they do that, they can take in large groups of normal people, because people are very often identified with either a Christian ideology or an economic ideology or a political ideology, and any of those ideas can be effectively co-opted by this conscienceless, remorseless type of person or a group of those type of people, and use it to manipulate large groups of people. I think this is a really good example of what happened to the Republican Party, for example, because now we see Fox News and those kind of institutions that are always pushing this twist of truth, where they distort the meaning of, especially an event like this, where they come in and they, with broad strokes, paint a picture that's just not accurate, and large groups of people who aren't able to take the time to come down here and talk to people and see it for themselves are taken in by it. So that's the whole reason I come down here, is to spread awareness. This book, Political Phenomenology by Andrew Lobachevsky, is really good. Also the works of Robert Hare, Snakes in Suits, is a very effective one at showing how they can co-opt large corporations, how they get in, how they can climb the corporate ladder. And I think his work's a really good way of understanding that. Also, just any reading on psychopathy or it's psychopathy, sociopathy. There's different ways to describe the condition, but until we as a society have a very broad understanding where we can identify the behavior and refuse to tolerate it and participate in it anymore, we're still going to be able to be manipulated by them. So until we understand that point, I I don't think there's any way we can effectively move forward with a system that's still controlled by psychopaths. They have a very charming personality. They're very likable. They come across as excellent conversationalists. They have a mask of sanity, which was a book actually written by Hervey Cleckley, who first started giving it scientific analysis back in like the 50s and 60s. But it's basically a personality mask that they wear, which makes them appear like any normal person. So they can effectively mimic our normal emotional responses without actually having them. So we think that, you know, we're talking to a normal person when in fact they're actually, you know, a consciousless being who just has this mask over their face and their personality that effectively blocks us from understanding what they really are. They're very manipulative and cunning. They're natural liars. They have a tendency to, they can actually fool polygraphs because polygraphs are based on a natural human response to lying. We feel anxiety when we lie. Psychopaths do not, because they have this weird thing where they can believe whatever it is that they're saying. They are thrill seekers, so it kind of makes sense with this whole like financial speculation attitude, especially on Wall Street, how they would go in and just you know repackage bad mortgages and sell them to other people and totally flip them and then make huge hordes of money. It kind of makes a sick sort of sense that that's the type of person that would be able to do such a thing and then convince somebody to let them get away with it. So just to have it keep going like this, it seems evident to me at least that they have a huge network with a lot of money involved, and what people that are involved in it that aren't actually psychopaths become like them themselves because they're getting rich, they don't really care. But yeah, the primarily the trait is that they have no conscience. They have no ability to empathize. The only emotions that they're really capable of feeling are proto-emotions like frustration, anger, jealousy, and a want or a hunger for whatever it is they desire. That could be sexual gratification. Some of them are just like parasites. They live in their parents' basement their entire lives playing video games because that's all they want to do. There's also a huge variety in psychopathy. Some of them end up serial killers, rapists, and they end up in prison. But a lot of them, the best of them actually, are able to become priests, doctors, politicians. I think George W. Bush was actually a really good example of a psychopath who was installed in power. And if you Google George W. Bush and psychopathy, you'll get tons of hits. So there's a lot of interesting reading that's available on the net, and I highly recommend that everybody familiarize themselves with the condition, because it's only a matter of time before you or somebody you love ends up being affected by them, if not individually and personally, then on the macro social level where they're bleeding our economy dry and you're out of a job and you don't really understand why. It's kind of thick reading, but it's a really good topic and explains how they're able to co-opt ideologies in groups. And Andrew Lorczewski, the author, was a student researching psychiatry in Poland when the Nazis took over in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and he cataloged what was happening from that perspective. So he noticed that some people were able to see through it and see that it was just like false logic and lies, but a large group of people actually imbibed the ideology and kind of made it their own and became little psychopathic tools themselves. He also explains that this is how Nazi Germany was able to get away with executing millions of people because they can co-opt the whole country, basically the political structure, and effectively push their ideology to control large groups of people. Do I think that's what's happening in America today? And I think Nazi Germany kind of seems like almost like a trial run. Like they tried it and they kind of failed because they were a little too overt. Today it's much more covert. They have much broader reach with network television and the mainstream media, which seems to be effectively controlled by the military-industrial complex and other financial interests. There's lots of interesting studies that show the concentration of power and wealth in the hands of very few people, and when that happens and they want to stay on top, they're willing to do anything, to go to any lengths to stay there. And I think that's basically what's happening in America, except we don't have enough awareness of psychopathy right now. We don't understand that they can be politicians, they can be CEOs, they can be religious leaders, and so many people just want to follow someone. They want to follow an ideology, and they don't have the time or the discernment to see through the lies and how they're actually being used to effectively control or combat normal conscience-filled human beings. So if we keep going down the path we're going, I don't think we'll be able to have things like this. We're going to end up with concentration camps or worse. But what really keeps me up at night is just the idea that sooner or later they're going to win. And I think the only way we can stop that is by spreading information about what kind of people they are, how they operate, what their weaknesses are, and that's really our only shot at beating them. It's like David and Goliath, because we don't have money, we don't have resources, but we have knowledge and truth. So that's what I'm trying to use. That's why I come down here.